hostess, and this here may be tough to you. Snack cake to me, yeah, more hostess. This been overdue forever. Asked me when it was dropping, said never. Should've made you cut the feta, but I designed it Freemason Margiela.
What's goody, Shellitronnn here, the most woke, no joking. I'm back again with a brand new video, and it's been a minute since I've done one of these videos, maybe a few weeks now, but this is going to be a preview video of the Monday Night Football game between the Panthers and the Saints, and there's a lot more going on in this game than you really might think, more than just what the game results are going to be. There's a lot of other things happening in the periphery of this game that are going to be some very interesting topics. And I'll start off with the more long-term topic first, playoff contention hopes. And as an extension, not just for the Panthers, since the Vikings had to blow out the Dolphins, we had to depend on the Dolphins a little bit for our playoff hopes to sneak into the back door of the playoffs. Turns out the Vikings can play when they kind of want to. That was a blowout. The Dolphins did come back a little bit, had a little bit of fight, had some pride, but it really wasn't enough, and it still ended up being a nice little blowout for them. I mean, look, it still ended up being a 24-point game, proving that the Vikings can be serious when their life's on the line, and they are still in playoff contention. Weirdly enough, so are we, but that might be speaking a little bit too soon because as I'm recording this video, I'm actually also kind of watching this Eagles-Rams game, and right now there's 4 minutes left in the game, and the score is 30-23 Eagles. The Eagles look like they can win this game, and if the Eagles win this game, there's going to be a couple things working against us. First off, if the Eagles win this game with Nick Foles at quarterback, who's been their savior, maybe going on 2 years in late season situations against pretty big name teams and big game situations, then first of all, it would mean that the Saints at 11-2 are going to be smelling blood in the water. That puts them in sole possession of the number 1 spot in the NFC, meaning they get the number 1 spot, obviously, the first round bye, and home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs leading up into the Super Bowl. Did I mention that the Super Bowl is in a place that they're very familiar with? So it's borderline a home game for them in either way. But what I want to mention even more than that is if the Eagles win this game, that gives us potentially a better draft stock position. So, I mean, it's a win-lose kind of situation here where, one, if they win, then we're better off going into next year. But on the other hand, the Saints are going to be looking to have their best game of the season against us because they understand that having a 1-game lead for that number 1 spot in the NFC is not enough. Getting a 2-game lead on the Rams is going to be very important for them. And this is about the perfect time to make their push. And the Rams are in a very precarious spot. But honestly, let's get a little bit ahead of ourselves here because we're not really looking at playoff contention right now. We're trying to just focus on week to week. Can we win these games and what can we do? But if you watched my last video I did where I asked the question, should the Panthers consider benching Cam Newton? That game between the Vikings and Dolphins may have been a little bit of a pivotal kind of thing there. Now, we're not going to see Cam get benched in this game Monday night versus the Saints. It's just not going to happen. But with the Vikings winning that game and putting an even bigger distance between us two, there may be an even more realistic chance now that the team decides to sit Cam Newton, let him recover, and let Taylor Heineke play the last 2 games of the season. But let's go ahead and focus on this game right now. Panthers versus Saints at home, Monday Night Football. It's going to be a toughie. It doesn't matter if you're a long-term, die-hard Panthers fan or last year was your first year ever watching a Panthers game. Most of us, I say 99% of us, remember last year the Saints swept us, not just in the regular season where we went 0-2 against them, but in the playoffs where we lost on the very last play of the game, which stemmed from a lot of other things happening, mainly the Mike Adams pick on Drew Brees on 4th and 20, where he picked off the ball a good 20-25 yards away from where the ball will be spotted on a turnover on downs. He picked it off, tried to drop it real quick. Refs gave us the interception. Then our O-line decided they forgot how to block. And then the refs decided we can't really call defensive pass interference on the very last play of the game in a playoff game, which I kind of understand. You don't want the last play of a playoff game to be decided by a ref's call, by a whistle. But in that situation, it was clearly the pass interference on Devin Funchess. He got hacked, and he was already injured. This is a really raw way to end a game, to end a season, and to have a divisional foe who's been so bad in your division for so long, get a 3-0 sweep on you on the season, it does not feel good. But this is a new year, so we have a new chance to right the wrongs of last year and possibly split or have a little sweep of our own against the New Orleans Saints. And if you were to ask me straight up, what do you believe the chances are of a Panthers sweep of the New Orleans Saints? Pull the trigger. But if you were to ask me what the chances are for a split, I mean, it might be kind of nice depending on just how the Rams do, maybe how the Bears are doing going into Week 17. Maybe the Saints decide to rest some of their players Week 17 if they've already got the number 1 seed locked up, home field advantage. You don't want to see guys getting injured, and you know the Panthers are going to be playing for pride if Cam's still in the game. So there's a chance we get a split in the season, but as for a sweep, I'm not sure. But also, Week 17 is in the Dome, and even if Drew Brees doesn't play, Taysom Hill, this backup quarterback slash kick returner slash defensive player slash running back slash I don't know what this guy is. Taysom Hill is the perfect example, maybe the best example, maybe the only example of an all-around athlete in the NFL right now. There's a lot of guys who can play, running back, receiver. We see OBJ can go on end rounds. He can catch the ball, obviously. But he's thrown for, 2 touchdowns this season? But this guy, Taysom Hill, is actually a full package of all the things you want in an athlete who doesn't really excel at just one thing. He's like a jack of all trades but master of none. He can hit you with a number of things. And he's one of those decoy weapons that is actually not a decoy. You actually have to look for him and look at him because the Saints are not scared to put the ball in his hands. You don't want to work your whole scheme around him or spend too much time scheming around Taysom Hill, but he's definitely someone whose name you have to circle when you go over a gameplay and say, look, keep an eye out for this guy because he might do something flashy. All he needs is one play. The Saints just want one good play out of Taysom Hill every game. They'll probably give him the ball 10 times, but all they need is one big play out of him. And for the most part, he gets it. Now for the matchup details here, I'm going to give you some numbers here. The Saints are great. Number 2 in points in the NFL with 34.4 a game. Number 7 in yards with almost 400 yards per game. Number 8 in rush yards per game. Number 1 in the league in defensive rush yards per game. They hold teams to under, I think it's 80 yards per game. Now, I don't know if that's actually a function of their front 7 actually being elite, or the fact that their offensive pass game is so great that teams never really get a chance to run against them. The Saints go boom, boom, boom. You're down 2 scores, and are you going to run the ball? Are you running the ball down 14, down 17 against the Saints? I'm not 100% sure. You know how most teams who go against elite quarterbacks say, okay, well, we're going to just stall the game out, use our run game, keep that guy off the field. That kind of plan doesn't actually work against Drew Brees all that well. He can get it started in a flash. Him, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. There's just elite players up and down the field for them, and their defense is starting to come alive a little bit. Meanwhile, our defense is looking less and less impressive by the week. We're just not tackling. I'm not sure if it's us just missing tackles completely, not wrapping up the right way, or teams just scheming around our defense the perfect way, but it's just not looking all that great. Kind of bad coverage. We started off the year with some pretty decent coverage in the secondary. It wasn't all that great. We got Eric Weed. The secondary looked a lot better. We were still getting burned here and there, but it wasn't a big issue. Now, more toward the back end of the season, our secondary is looking very bad. Our front 4 is looking very bad. And I'm not sure which is worse. I'm leaning more toward the front 4, honestly, but it could really be a toss-up. Offensive coordinators are not worried about our secondary. They're not worried about the pass rush. They might be worried a little bit about Luke Kuechly, but honestly, he may be one of the only players that teams are really thinking to themselves, okay, let's actually watch out for him. We know Mario Addison and Julius Peppers can get sacks, but it's been kind of slowed down in the more recent weeks. And if we go to the offensive side of the ball, look, we know what Cam's been doing. He started off extremely hot, doing really well, but in more recent weeks, picks, missed throws, it's just not looking all that great for him. We know his shoulder is hurt. We're not exactly sure to what extent it's hurt. It's probably in a good amount of pain. He cannot throw deep with it. Now we know Christian's been going crazy this whole season. I think it should be a focus of ours to get him to that mark of 1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 receiving yards. I think he would only be the 2nd or 3rd player in the history of the NFL to meet that mark. And getting him to that mark would be a very bright spark to an otherwise let's call it a disappointing season for the Panthers so far. I really can't call what I believe is going to happen in this game. I think DJ Moore will have a good game. I think we'll see some more out of our younger guys, Curtis Samuel. I think we'll see something out of Jarius Wright. But honestly, my biggest focus offensively in this game is seeing exactly what we get out of Devin Funchess. We all know he's in a contract year. I think we all have varying feelings about what we should do with Devin Funchess in the offseason. Should we pay him the big bucks like a number one receiver would be getting? Do we let him walk? Do we try to offer him a kind of mid-tier, maybe a Y or maybe even a Z receiver kind of contract, even though he's a big body kind of guy? We know there are teams out there who are desperate for wide receivers, so he may get an offer somewhere else. But I think this is going to be a game where, look, we still have playoff hopes. There's still a percentage chance. We're not actually mathematically eliminated. So we want to see what kind of heart he has in this game versus the Saints. We know that Cam Newton and that Saints defense, there's no love lost between the two of them. Cam Newton and Cam Jordan, they don't like each other. The two don't like each other. And I'm really, really intrigued to see who else on the offense steps up in this game. I have no doubt about Christian McCaffrey. That's an afterthought. I know in my mind I can rack up 100 yards from scrimmage from Christian McCaffrey. Probably 75 from him. Maybe actually, I might go 85 on the ground, 75 through the air for Christian, maybe 2 touchdowns. DJ Moore, I have faith in him. He's definitely the future of this offensive attack through the air. But like I said, I really want to see what we get out of Devin Funchess. We heard there was a miscommunication, a lack of, being on the same page between Cam and Devin. Let's find out. I want to see something from our old guys on defense. Mike Adams, Captain Munnerlyn, Julius Peppers. I have to see a little bit more from these guys. For the most part, I think these guys are probably going to be gone after this offseason. One other player I need to see more from is Thomas Davis Sr. I know he's gone on Twitter and talked about, it's my fault. People have been saying, I lost a step, I don't have it anymore, whatever. Put the blame on me. Now, as a player, publicly, you always need to take the blame because, honestly, no one wants to hear a player complain. Whether or not it's your fault, it's just the kind of thing that comes with the territory. No one wants to hear a player complain about, oh man, it wasn't my fault this, wasn't my fault that. We understand the coaching is what the coaching is. You have to say what you have to say. I feel you on that, Thomas Davis Sr. But if you are being serious about wanting to play an extra year for the Panthers next year, we got to see something of it. Now, I do realize K'Wan Short's been being declared up and down between questionable and doubtful for the game. That'll probably be a game time decision. But I'm really thinking, win or lose, I want to see some real push out of this team. This should not be a blowout. I think this game should be tightly contested. This is a divisional rivalry after all. It's at home, prime time. We have to show a little something here. With my heart, I'm going to call this a high-scoring game. This probably goes... I want to call it 31-37 Saints. But with my head, I looked at some of the sports books, and Vegas has already bet us up to a 6.5 home underdog. If you know anything about betting and the line and that kind of stuff, you get 3 points for being the home team. So being a 6-point underdog at home means that Vegas is really calling for a blowout. This could easily be a 2-possession game by the time that clock hits triple zeros. Y'all know I'm pretty optimistic as a Panthers fan, but I also keep it real with you. I just can't predict a win with a straight face here. But let me know what your thoughts are. What are your score predictions? What are your stat predictions? What do you see happening in this game? Let me know in the comments below. And you already know what to do with that like button.
Cheers to you, appreciate the chance. Been told y'all I been the man. Been told y'all I had the gift. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Real ones gonna recommend. Count this as another win.